The homecoming party was supposed to be perfect. Golden lights draped the old-school courtyard like constellations fallen to earth. Music pulsed through the air, soft but powerful, vibrating through the ground as laughter echoed between banners that read "Welcome Home." Cameras flashed, glasses clinked, and familiar faces from long ago filled the space with nostalgia and half-buried memories. Wang arrived first. He stood at the edge of the courtyard, hands in his pockets, posture calm but eyes restless. The years had changed him, sharpened his edges, quieted his smile. But tonight, standing here again, he felt 17 all over. The same place, the same the same weight in his chest he had never truly learned how to name. People noticed him immediately. Whispers followed him like shadows. "Is that Wang Yibo? He really came back. He looks different." He nodded politely when spoken to, offered brief smiles, but his gaze kept drifting toward the entrance. He told himself he wasn't waiting for anyone, that this was just another event, another appearance. But his heart betrayed him, beating faster each time the doors opened. Then Zhan walked in. The world shifted. It wasn't dramatic in a loud way. It was quiet, like the sudden stillness before a storm. Conversations faltered. Even the music seemed to lower itself, as if aware something important had arrived. Zhan looked around slowly, taking everything in. His expression was calm, polite, almost gentle. But when his eyes met Yibo's from across the courtyard, that calm cracked, just for a second. That was all it took. Years of unsaid words, broken promises, and memories rushed back in a single heartbeat. They hadn't spoken properly in years. Not since the night everything fell apart. Not since they chose silence over truth. Someone clapped Zhan on the shoulder, pulling him into conversation. Someone else dragged Yibo toward a group for photos. The party resumed, loud and bright, but an invisible tension stretched between them, tight enough to snap. As the night went on, the air grew heavier. Yibo laughed when he was supposed to, posed when asked, but every time he saw Zhan smile at someone else, something twisted inside him. Not jealousy, he told himself, but regret. The kind that settles deep and refuses to leave. Zhan felt it too. He tried to focus on the people around him, on familiar faces and old jokes, but his attention kept slipping. Every time Yibo passed by, close enough that their shoulders almost brushed, his chest tightened. The space between them felt louder than any argument they'd ever had. It all finally unraveled near the dance floor. A slow song came on, one that used to play during late nights and stolen moments back when everything was simpler. Zhan froze the moment he recognized it. Across the floor, Yibo stiffened too. The universe had a cruel sense of humor. Zhan turned to leave, but someone grabbed his arm. "Come on, Zhan. Dance. For old time's sake." He hesitated, then nodded, stepping onto the floor. Yibo watched. That was his mistake. The sight of Zhan under the lights, smiling softly, moving to a song that once belonged to them, snapped something inside him. Without thinking, he crossed the room, ignoring the curious stares. When he reached Zhan, the music was still playing, but the moment felt unbearably loud. "Can we talk?" Yibo asked, his voice low but tight. Zhan looked up, surprise flashing across his face before settling into something guarded. "Now." "Yes, now." The people around them sensed it instantly. The laughter dimmed. The space widened. Zhan exhaled slowly. "Fine." They stepped aside, but the words didn't wait for privacy. "You don't get to show up like nothing happened," Yibo said, his composure cracking. "You disappeared." Zhan's eyes hardened. "You pushed me out. I was protecting us." "No," Zhan shot back, voice shaking. "You were protecting yourself." The crash out was quiet at first, sharp words wrapped in calm tones, but every sentence cut deeper than the last. "I waited," Zhan continued. "I waited for you to say something. Anything. And I waited for you not to leave," Yibo replied. The music stopped. All eyes turned to them now. The homecoming party had become a stage, and neither of them knew how to step off. "You think this was easy for me?" Yibo's voice rose despite himself. Every time I came back here, every memory had your name on it. Then why did you act like I never mattered? Xiao demanded, emotion breaking through. Why did you let everyone believe that? Silence slammed down between them. Yibo opened his mouth, then closed it. That hesitation was everything. Xiao laughed softly, bitterly. I guess that's my answer. He turned to leave. That was when Yibo truly crashed out. Stop, he said, louder now. You don't get to walk away again. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Xiao stopped but didn't turn around. I walked away because staying was breaking me. Yibo stepped closer, voice raw. So did losing you. For a moment, no one breathed. The golden lights flickered above them, catching the shine in Xiao eyes as he finally turned back. His voice was quieter now. Then why does it still feel like I was the only one hurting? Yibo didn't have a clean answer, just the truth. Because I didn't know how to say I was scared, he admitted. And I thought if I stayed silent, you'd be safer without me. Xiao stared at him, the anger draining into exhaustion. You don't get to decide that for someone else. I know, Yibo said, and I hate myself for it. The party was completely still now. No music, no chatter, just two people standing in the ruins of something they never properly buried. Finally, Xiao spoke. This isn't the place for this. Yibo nodded, swallowing hard. I know. They stood there for another second. Too long, not long enough, before Xiao stepped back. I'm glad you came, he said softly, even if it hurts. Then he walked away. The music eventually returned, awkward and unsure. Conversations restarted in whispers. The homecoming party went on, but something had undeniably changed. Yibo stayed behind, staring at the space Xiao had left, chest aching but lighter than before. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't closure. But for the first time in years, the truth was out in the open. And sometimes, that's where healing actually begins. The party never truly recovered after that moment. Even as the DJ forced the music back to life, the rhythm felt wrong. Too loud, too fast, like it was trying to drown out something everyone had just witnessed. Conversations restarted, but they stayed shallow, cautious. Eyes kept drifting toward Wang, still standing near the edge of the dance floor, and toward the exit where Xiao had disappeared. Yibo hadn't moved. The lights above blurred as he stared at his hands, fingers trembling just enough to give him away. He hadn't planned to say any of that. The words had ripped themselves free, dragged up from years of restraint and swallowed regret. He told himself he should leave, right now, before the whispers grew teeth, but his feet stayed planted, heavy with unfinished business. Across the courtyard, Xiao stood just outside the doors, the cool night air hitting his face like a wake-up call. He braced his hands on the railing, breathing slowly, deliberately. Inside, laughter rose again, but it sounded distant, unreal. He had promised himself he wouldn't break tonight. He had rehearsed this return 100 times, smiling, polite, untouchable. He hadn't prepared for Yibo's voice cracking in front of everyone. He hadn't prepared for the way old wounds reopened so easily, like they'd never healed at all. Someone pushed through the doors behind him. Zhan. Xiao didn't turn. He already knew who it was. You shouldn't be out here alone, Yibo said quietly. That's funny, Xiao replied, still facing the dark. I learned how to do that from you. The words landed harder than any shout. Yibo stepped closer, lowering his voice even more. I didn't mean to cause a scene. But you did, Xiao said, finally turning. His eyes were steady now, but tired. And the worst part is, part of me is relieved. Yibo frowned. Relieved? Yes, Xiao admitted. Because at least now I know it wasn't all in my head. They stood under the faint glow of a single hanging light, far from the golden brightness inside. Hey, stripped of spectacle, the tension felt raw. You left without saying goodbye, Yibo said. And you stayed without saying anything at all, Xiao shot back. Do you know what that does to someone? Yibo clenched his jaw. I thought if I cut it off clean. There was nothing clean about it, Xiao interrupted, his voice rising before he could stop himself. He caught it. exhaled, then continued more quietly. You vanished when things got hard, and I had to pretend I was fine. Inside the party, a group near the windows watched shamelessly. Phones were lowered, but attention was sharp. Everyone could sense they were witnessing something unfinished, something real. Back inside, the host of the event nervously tried to redirect energy, calling for drinks, announcing a game, but the focus refused to shift. This wasn't just a reunion anymore. It was history resurfacing. Outside, Yibo finally spoke the truth he had buried. I was afraid, he said. Afraid that staying would ruin you. Afraid that everything would collapse if I held on. Zhan studied him for a long moment. You don't get to be the hero in someone else's story by abandoning them. The words hit harder because they were calm. Yibo swallowed. I know. Silence stretched again, thick but different now. Not explosive, but heavy with understanding. Inside, the DJ switched tracks again, something slower, but it only highlighted the emptiness in the room. People danced out of obligation, laughter forced. The homecoming party had turned into background noise to a moment no one would forget. Finally, Zhan broke the quiet. We're not fixing this tonight, he said. Yibo nodded. I'm not asking to. Good, Zhan replied. Because this place, this crowd, it's too full of ghosts. Yibo glanced back at the glowing courtyard. Still feels like the past refuses to stay buried. That's what homecoming does, Zhan said. It reminds you who you were before you learned how to hide. Yibo looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time, didn't see the version frozen in memory. He saw someone who had survived. I never stopped caring, Yibo said softly. Zhan's expression softened just a fraction. Caring in silence still hurts. They stood there until the night air cooled the fire in their chests. When Zhan finally stepped back, it wasn't with anger this time. I'm going back inside, he said. Not for you. For myself. Yibo respected that. I'll give you space. Zhan paused, then added, but don't pretend tonight didn't happen. I won't, Yibo promised. Zhan walked back in alone. The crowd parted instinctively, eyes following him. Some smiled awkwardly. Some looked away. He returned to the party changed. Not healed, but lighter, as if something heavy had finally been named. Minutes later, Yibo left quietly through the side gate, the music fading behind him. He didn't look back. The homecoming party ended later than planned, but everyone knew the real event had already passed. By morning, stories would circulate, details would blur, opinions would form. But for Wang, Yibo, and Zhan, that night would remain sharp and unforgettable. The night the truth crashed out in front of everyone, and neither of them could run from it anymore. Sometimes, going home doesn't give you peace. Sometimes, it gives you honesty, and that changes everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think happens next after this night? Your support helps the story continue, so stay tuned for more bell sparkles.